We had two nice wins. We beat Illinois on Wednesday, came back and beat, helped me out, Iowa on Saturday. And the team played well. I mean, I think we're getting better. And setters are playing well. Middle hitters are starting to get into the fray and make some adjustments. Served well. Passing's been a strength of this team all season long. We're ranked right at the top of the Big Ten, toward the top certainly in passing. So really excited to get a couple of sweeps at home when we really needed them. A lot of questions last week about whether we could win at home, and at least we went out and answered them this past weekend. And now we go on the road with Indiana on Wednesday at Wilkinson Hall, which is a good place to play volleyball. And then Saturday over to, I should know the name of that facility because I've been there several times. What's it called? Oh, Covelli Center, which is maybe the best place to play volleyball in the Big Ten. So we're looking forward to those. We know we have our hands full with both those teams. I think Indiana is maybe the best team that's not ranked in the top 25 right now. They've played extremely good volleyball this season. They have really zero bad losses on their docket, and they've played some people really, really tough who are good, and they've got plenty of wins. So we know that they're going to be locked and loaded. That match, from what I understand, is sold out, and that will be exciting. I think that will certainly motivate our players as well as their players, so it should be just a fantastic match. I think anybody that paid attention to the Big Ten this past week, or maybe even week and a half, realizes that about anything can happen in this league. And there have been a lot of upsets and a lot of teams win that because they had a lot of fight and a lot of toughness, and it's been upset city across the Big Ten for the last couple of weekends. So I think that will keep things interesting throughout the rest of the season. And all we can do is control what we can control, and I think we're doing a good job of that, of making progress. We practiced this morning. With this being fall break for our students, we were able to come in the morning. We'll practice briefly again tomorrow morning before we go to Indiana, and we'll also get a chance to be in their facility tomorrow night for a practice before we play 7 o'clock on Wednesday. So that's kind of the prelim, and ready for questions. Thank you.
Going from the two 5-set matches last weekend and then picking up 2 sweeps at home, what were you most impressed with the way the team bounced back?
Just the energy that we had. I thought we looked exhausted down the stretch of that week, last week, when I thought Northwestern played very well against us. They had a kid put on a show that put her team on her back, and they beat us. But I just thought we looked like we were a young, exhausted team. And then this week we came back and looked like we had a point to prove. And we'd adjusted to some things and thought we played well. And it was nice to see how well we served the ball. We got off to a great start in both those matches because we were serving missiles over the net and put both Illinois and Iowa at a disadvantage because they had a hard time with our serving. And that's something you have to do in this league to give yourself any kind of a chance at all. So I was happy with that. I was happy that Taylor Anderson had 2 really, really strong matches. She's making really steady progress for us. It's a hard job to step in and set as a freshman in the Big Ten. There's a lot to learn, a lot of things that are going on that you have to be aware of. But she's starting to really, get her feet steady in what we're trying to do, and she was really good again this morning. We're getting our middles involved in the game. For a while, our middle offense was non-existent, in my opinion, the way that it needs to be. I think that's changing very, very quickly, which is going to allow the pin hitters to open up and have much better looks as well. So I think that kind of is what I saw.
I know that you guys have played in a lot of tough environments so far this season. Is the message any different heading into IU, knowing just that one is kind of always a highly anticipated match, and I'm sure players are excited, have had that circle on the calendar?
You try to recruit players that will thrive in that environment, and sometimes you accomplish that. I mean, recruiting is a little bit of a crapshoot. You really don't know who you're getting, what kind of player you're always getting. But I can promise you we've got the kind of players right now that I think are going to thrive in that environment. I'm not saying we're going to beat Indiana because I think they're really good. And they've got some tough characters on their team as well. I think it's going to be a great match. I think that the fans are going to really get their money's worth, and to have that kind of a match and a rivalry like we have is good for both Purdue and Indiana. It's good for the sport. I know we'll have our fair share of fans there. We always do. I know they're sold out, which is going to limit probably some of our people from going and making that trip unless they were way ahead of the game and got those tickets early. But I just think big-time players are going to respond to big-time environments, and that's what this is going to be. So we'll see which team has those players. Yeah. Thank you.
Dave, I'm going to go back to serving, and obviously you got a lot of aces this year, also a lot of errors. Where do you kind of find that fine line of we have to stay aggressive even if they're not going over the net or landing in?
Yeah, let me just look at that number. I don't think that we've served overly aggressive or that we've been overly careless with our serve. And we have 72 aces and 109 errors, and then our opponents have 67 aces and 155 errors. So we're beating the curve, I guess, from that standpoint. When you play in the Big Ten, you have to serve tough. If you're serving marshmallows over the net, they're going to run it right down your throat. And we're not serving tough enough yet, in my opinion, across the board. Each week we seem to get one more person that grasps the concept. I thought Eva Hudson served really, really well against Iowa, and she's kind of powder puffed it a little bit, up until then. She's got a great arm, obviously, because you've seen her swing at a ball. But serving is a different mechanic. It's just a different fundamental skill. And so we're really encouraging her to serve the ball tougher and tougher. She contacts the ball at a very high point, which is good. She's got long arms, and she can jump on her jump float serve. So getting her into that fold of being another one of the tough servers through our lineup is really good, but you've got to put 6 people out there that are keeping the opponent off balance and not allowing them to run their offense the way they like to. And I think Indiana's got pretty good serve receive. They're not at the top of the league, but they're a long way from the bottom. So we're going to have to try to serve tough, mix things up a little bit so that they're not able to get the ball to their setter. They've got maybe the best setter, one of the best setters in the league for sure, a kid out of Indianapolis that's a great player, junior, and we can't let her just have her way with us. We're going to have to keep her off balance.
When there's a traveling trophy on the line that you've been fortunate to own more than you haven't by a wide margin, does that raise the stakes where there's something extra on the line there when you play Indiana for this?
Well, I think the reason there is a traveling trophy is the reason why we get excited. It's Indiana and Purdue. And anybody that's lived in this state knows that means something. And it's nice to have the traveling trophy, but you have to win to get the traveling trophy. So we just like to win. We like to win that match. And sometimes it's super challenging. People think, it's going to be really tough this year going to Indiana. It's always tough going to Indiana and winning that. It's just we've been fortunate that our kids have risen to the occasion a little bit more than what they have. But it will be really tough to beat Indiana in their gym. But that's what makes it sweeter. The tougher it is, the better you feel when you get a win. But I think this will be a real challenge. I don't think it's going to be the end of the world for either team if they lose this. But that Monon Spike thing is a big deal for us. I think it was the Purdue players that initially started that. They brought that to the table for Indiana, and they agreed to have it. And for a long time, Indiana dominated the competition. But we're happy that we have a chance to go back and that we have it right now, and we can maintain it. Yeah.
You have quite a few players from Indiana. Obviously, you're from Indiana. Kind of the split statewide. You're a Purdue fan or you're an Indiana fan. Sprinkle in a few Ball State, Indiana State, Notre Dame. But for the people you've recruited from out of state, how quickly do they adapt to okay, that's our rival. That's the team that the fans at least get very amped up for that match.
It may take them one match, one time living through that experience to find out what the value of that is. And again, you're right. We've got several freshmen that have not been through that before. And as you know, we're starting 3 or 4 of them. And so it'll be interesting to see how they respond. But sometimes being ignorant to what's going on can be helpful. If they just go in and just play and not worry too much about what really is at stake, there's nothing wrong with that either. But I think there'll be enough people on our side of the net that understand the value of winning the match. Yeah. Tim?
Well, Sam just took my first question about the Indiana players on your roster. So let me ask this. At this point in the season, I know that you monitor your players in terms of how many swings they have both in practice and games. Are we at the point in the season where that has to ratchet down even more, or how do you manage players now as you get to the midpoint of your season?
I don't think that we are to the point where that's under the microscope, as you, I think, were referring to it. We have players right now that we are keeping a close eye on because they just jump so often. They're key people in what we're trying to do. And so there are a couple players that we're making sure that if we're in a drill by rotation, they're not in there all by themselves the whole time. Every couple plays they step out and somebody steps in for them. Our strength coach and our trainer are watching the jumps that each one of them get, and other players. But for the most part, it's just a couple that we're keeping a close eye on. But you're right, down the stretch, in 4 or 5 more weeks, we'll take a close look at things. And our strength coach has techniques, technology that evaluates what their jump looks like and how explosive they are getting off of the ground. And they let us know. We got what's called a Caterpillar, which is a technology. They all wear one of these little, what would you call that piece of technology that judges?
I would say a thingy.
Okay, a thingy. But how hard they're jumping each time and how many times they're jumping, and it's really pretty incredible. And so once a certain player that we're watching gets to that point in practice, they're done. They're not jumping anymore. And I think that's good because then it allows somebody else to get in there and get some of those reps on that first unit side and feel more comfortable when that happens during a match. Did it help you at all?
It does.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, you mentioned serving before. Chloe does the jump serve. Has anybody else on your team tried that in practice, or
You have to have an absolute bazooka to make that effective in the women's game. You've got to hit the ball a certain pace, whether it's over 45 miles an hour or whatever it might be. And there's some people that she's not effective against either because they're just really good serve receivers. The top spin serve, if not served at a certain pace, is an easier ball to pass than a float serve. So you've got to make sure you're getting enough pepper on it. And for the most part, Chloe is doing that. She's been very, very effective in the Big Ten with that serve. And that's what we were kind of waiting to see. When we knew our schedule was tough early on, but we said, when we get in the Big Ten, let's see if it's still as effective as it was in non-conference, and it has been. So that's a real good thing. But we don't have anybody else right now that I feel like is going to be effective doing that or has the experience of doing that. But she has been very effective.
Last one, about a third of the way through the Big Ten. Anything in the conference surprise you at this season?
Yeah, there's been some things that have surprised me. Some teams that have lost some matches that have surprised me a little bit, that had more experience than we do, and plenty of talent that have lost some. I thought it was great to see Rutgers get a big win last night or not last night, but on what was that? Saturday? You're kind of guessing back there, Rachel, but. One of those, Saturday or Sunday, they upset Minnesota. And Rutgers has maybe won a half dozen matches in the Big Ten at home, maybe more than that. And for them to knock off Minnesota, I thought that was great for them. And they're working just as hard as everybody else is. So it's great to see that their recruits have come in and made a difference. And when we walked out of there, whenever it was, 2 weeks ago, we went to Maryland and were fortunate to beat them, and then I went to Rutgers and got out of there with a sweep, and that's hardly ever happens. It's just a hard place to play. But I remember telling our players, I said, they're going to win some matches in here, and we should feel pretty good about getting out of there the way that we did, and then for them to beat Minnesota in 4. It wasn't a 5-setter, it was a 4-setter. Was pretty impressive. So happy for them. And I know Michigan knocked off Northwestern after they knocked us off. So there's a lot of stuff going on right now, and I think there's just a little more balance in the league than some people anticipated. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you. Have a great week.